Again, thank you everybody for joining us. This is going to be the second session for system admin. A little bit of housekeeping. This is being recorded. It's going to be available. We'll send out an email to everybody in attendance after the call with the recording. We have the PowerPoint presentation available if you're also interested in that. So I'm going to move that off screen here in a little bit. So there is a full PowerPoint if you'd like that. And then we'll be sending out updates and hosting this on the Benelinx 360 site. Hopefully this is helpful. All right. So ready? I am. So let's talk about this is our second session for system admin training. We're going to specifically talk about today the ability for system admins to go in and start making understanding what's going on in the back end, how things are built within Salesforce, and what the Benelinx managed package is providing you, as well as the ability to self-administer some items if you wish, meaning you can build fields, you can put them on page layouts, lightning pages, make them dynamic, add some formulas, add dependencies on. One thing I did add here that I want to talk about real quick is AI readiness. Okay, so this is the beginning as an owner, system admins, right? You're part of the leadership team where you're owning your Salesforce ecosystem. Benelinx is a piece of it. It's the managed package that has a tremendous amount of customizations for you pre-built. We'll talk a little bit about how you can see the differences, what Salesforce gives us versus what Benelinx is providing you from a shell of structure within Salesforce. But I added AI readiness here for two reasons. AI is becoming a part of our business world. It's becoming, and it is a part of our everyday world. The training that we're going to go through today, and I think we're actually going to have a third session because there's probably too much for us to go through today to really give you guys a very solid foundation on all the capabilities that you can do, is the beginning of how can we start to take the foundation of what Benelinx has built, the automation, and start introducing AI, which in a lot of places, this introduction is how do I start thinking like a computer, right? This is how I explain it. Okay. Why is that important and why is that needed? Okay. So when we think about AI, when we think about the ability for artificial intelligence to help us, I consider at least the first phase of AI implementation is how can it help me with how I'm running my business, how I'm using the Salesforce system, how I'm using the Benelinx features. That includes automation. How do I mass renew policies, for example? How do I create and synthesize data? How do I see information from a management perspective? Okay. How do I look at what policies we've sold, with what carrier, on what effective date, with what deductibles or copays? How do I get all that, aggregate all that data, right? An AI agent, agent force, various places where we can introduce AI, which we will be rolling out in our system, is kind of that assistant, that co-pilot. Part of being able to do that is going to be able to understand how do we teach it, right? If you have AI through the Benelink system and or on your own adding that component in, there still has to be a teaching component, right? A translation of, I need a flow to do X, Y, and Z. How do I teach any kind of a system and machine learning how to do that correctly? We know that there's a natural language models coming out, so you can talk to your computer, to your phone, etc., and it's going to try to find the information or replicate what you're asking for. So there's no really wrong way to do it. There's an efficient way, and there's a better way, right? So part of what we're training you today is to start thinking about how does the system understand what to do in a very manual process. What I'm teaching you is very manual. It's not AI, but what it's doing is starting to make you think about how do we think about how we build something in a way that a computer, a system, can understand, right? An application can understand. If we do it wrong, isn't it's not undoable, right? It's just how do we do it the most efficient way to get to the end result as fast as possible? I would argue all day long that what I'm teaching you is really critical to the beginning of getting us ready to introduce AI into your platform. Everybody will have it sooner than later. It's just the reality of the world we live in. Whether we give it to you through our package, whether you build it on your own, some combination, we're already using AI in everything that we do. I'm going to give you one example, maybe two. So, where are we already applying the AI concept, right? If we have a phone, if you notice in your Google searches, any kind of search engine, the first thing that pops up when you're searching is now AI mode, right? So it's already thinking and learning from the behavior and the requests that you're giving it. If we do it correctly, if we talk to our phone, as my 11-year-old son does, right, and talk to it correctly, we are going to get the results that we're looking for quicker. It's not wrong if I do it incorrectly. It's going to still get me results, and I may have to ask again or type in again to get the results I need, but I'm eventually going to get there, right? And as AI gets more smart and intelligent, it also is going to give us the results quicker and faster in our natural language communication. Okay? How fast we get there and how reliable and accurate information is the dependency. I would also argue that the system is teaching us, right? Our phones are teaching us how to get that information quickly. My 11-year-old son can talk to my navigation on my in my car, and he knows exactly how to subtly pause, request help, pause for a split second, and then engage the question. And in the order that he is asking that question, gives the result in a much faster way. I, on the other hand, will start talking to my navigation, not pause. I'm halfway through my request and then it engages the learning and the listening mode, right? So he has learned as much as we're teaching AI, AI is teaching us how to break down the request in a manner that efficiently gives us the response the first time accurately. So that is one example of how we're doing that in our normal life, not having anything to do with Salesforce or anything to do with Benelinx or anything to do with our work environment. We're already doing that. And my 11-year-old has already been programmed by AI, so to speak. As much as we're programming AI, it's also programmed him. He doesn't even think about that subtle pause and how to put together that question in a manner that is going to net result a much more efficient and accurate response the first time. That's what we're teaching you here. The critical fundamental component is if you learn how to use the system manually and understand how we start building fields, for example, how do we start breaking down components of dependencies? If I want this field to appear if, then, all those functions that I've been teaching people with pick lists and list view filters, once we start understanding how to communicate, how to interpret our request, then we will be able to be much more efficient in how we are going to manage, build, and use AI. It's not wrong if we do it incorrectly. It's going to take us longer to get there. If we do it in a succinct way, we're going to get there quicker and we're going to have a more reliable result, etc. So this is why when we start thinking about understanding a system like Salesforce in the back end, it's so much bigger than just building a field. It's reteaching us all, which I am still learning. So I'm with you, how to build functionality and think through it, even more importantly, what do I need out of the system so I can clearly build it, communicate it, etc., to give me the result I'm looking for. Okay. So that's why I put AI readiness in here, because this is the fundamental, foundational requirement, in my opinion. You can pay someone to do this, which you probably will anyway, to some degree, but understanding how to interpret is going to get you the result you're looking for, whether you pay someone or build it yourself, or even teach your AI agent force how to give you what you need. And a lot of it starts with understanding how to communicate and translate what we're asking for. And it's different. It is not the same as talking to someone in a business environment and asking about what is our ROI, what is our net result that we're trying to achieve. So the other thing I want to mention before we get too far into this session is when I go back to AI, some of you are launching, I call you my rogue clients, which is great. You're early adopters. You're running into this AI space. We have started to see some of our clients that are losing data. So they're running into AI, they're starting to build agents, they're starting to build agent force, et cetera. They're building their own, et cetera, et cetera. So what's happening is that if we let AI loose, unprepared, it could override our data. So that's not to scare anybody. What I'm recommending, if you're running into that space and you're moving forward, there's a couple best practices you can take into place. I'm going to mention it throughout the training today, but there's two fundamental things that I really highly encourage you to do. Three, actually. First one is make sure your data is accurate, right? If you're teaching AI something to do and it's pulling information from your system, if your data is inaccurate, it's going to learn the wrong thing. That's the fundamental. Second thing is anything that you're practicing and learning and building should be built in a sandbox first. Do not build it in production. You get a chance to take snippets of your data backwards into a sandbox, add stuff, mess around with it, experiment in a safe environment. Please, please do that, right? Salesforce gives you partial sandbox for free. If you want a full sandbox, you have to pay for it, but the partial is free and you can pull that back and then you can use that as an environment to test. Third thing is when you're moving it to production, because of the fact that AI can update your records and you may want it to, I highly, highly encourage you to put field tracking on your fields, on some of your fields. You cannot put it on every field. So I'm going to show you today how to do that. Field tracking allows you to see what that field data was, if it's an SIC code, and you have field tracking on that field. If you override that and change the value in that field, if you have field tracking enabled on that field and someone changes the SIC code, that field tracking history will tell you what the original data was, who changed it and when, and what the new value is. With AI coming into our space, launching in, and it's moving fast, I highly recommend you get prepared and do these fundamental things. You can't field track after. One of the things we talk about in training, when I delete a record, I can retrieve it from the recycle bin within 15 days. If I override values in a field, it is gone. The old data is gone unless I enable field tracking. Salesforce has enhanced this feature. If you're an OEM client, meaning you bought Salesforce from Benelinx, we can sell you enhanced capabilities to increase the number of fields you can track in each object. There's limits. 20, I think, right now. You can buy up to 60 fields per object to enable field tracking. If you're an ISV client, meaning you bought Salesforce direct from Salesforce, that feature is still available, but you're going to have to go to your sales rep to purchase it because we are not part of that contract. So, really great stuff, really exciting. And I really, really think this training, that's why we're probably going to break it up into two more sessions, is really getting us started to really launch into that AI space, which in whatever capacity that you're going to move forward. So with that being said, today we're going to talk about Object Manager. We're going to go through some core features. These are the features that I think our standard system admins have the ability to learn relatively quickly to make modifications to their system. I'm going to show you what that looks like from the details of my object and things I can decide I want or not want to be able to be used with that particular object. Fields and relationships. So what fields do I want? What fields do I have? What fields are mine? Which fields are Salesforce fields? Which fields are Benelinx fields? And how do I build new ones? How do I add those fields to the page layouts? How do I add those to Lightning pages? There's two different components there. How do I add those fields or remove them from compact layouts? What is a compact layout? Some of you may not know. And then also our different record types underneath each object. And again, an object is like accounts, contacts, policies, services. Within the object manager, we're going to summarize briefly also some additional features that are object defaults. And then we have advanced automation. I'm going to break apart these features. We're going to get through as much as we can today and probably move on to in 2 weeks a little bit more detail because there's just too much to show. So I'm going to pivot here and we're going to go through how do we get to our object manager. So kind of feeding off of the last session, system admins have to have system admin privileges, profile, settings. If you are system admin and you have that profile and permissions, if you go up to the gear on the top right, we're able to get to the backend system with the gear setup. That'll take me to the back end where I then have, which was the training session from last week, where we talked about the home tab and all the details of everything we can do there. Today, we're going to focus on Object Manager. This is the fun part. Um, so, a couple things about getting to this Object Manager tab. Like I say, in every session, training session, there's a long way and a short way. So I can get there each time going up to my gear, getting into the back end, right? And the default tab is home. I can pivot to the Object Manager. In addition, if I go back here, and if I'm inside the system moving around, I end up in an object or even further in a record. I'm in the object. Salesforce tells me where I'm at by highlighting or underlining. And now I go to my gear. I have the ability to go through the back end, through the setup gear, or if you notice at the bottom, I can shortcut it. So I'm in an account, and if I want to edit the account object, I can click on Edit Object, and it takes me right to the Object Manager and even further into the object that I was just in. Save me 2 clicks. Taking me to the same exact place, I'm just going to get there quicker. Okay, so short way, long way to get there. It's up to you how you would like to navigate to that object manager. So when I'm generally in this tab, right, which is the object manager tab, a couple things on this page from a visual perspective of what are you looking at. So this is breaking down every object that is in your system. Some of these are standard Salesforce objects. Some of these are Benelinx objects. Some of these might be Conga objects. Again, standard objects, accounts, contacts, leads, opportunities. Benelinx objects are going to be your policies, your services, your workflows. Okay. So, and the list is alphabetical. Okay. We can see what type of object it is. Standard object equals Salesforce. Salesforce brings this to us. Custom objects are either going to be that designates either custom objects that were built on your behalf or that you built, paid someone to build. They could also designate the Benelinx objects. They could also designate other managed package objects. So Benelinx is a managed package. So other managed package objects could be from a managed package like Conga Composer. As I scroll down, you can see some of the Conga Composer objects are stuck custom, and the designation is this is coming from their managed package. Okay. Couple things that are really important about understanding the backend. Understanding standard objects or fields. We'll talk about fields in a minute. Understanding how you can tell which one is which. We have 3 different versions of, objects or fields. We have the standard, like I said, this is what comes with every single Salesforce org. Those are standard objects. Salesforce owns them. They manage them. Nobody owns them but them. We might share them. We share accounts. We share contacts, but Salesforce owns them. We have managed package objects. And the designation for Benelinx, if it comes from the Benelinx package, you can see the API name. We have a BLX prefix on all of our objects and our fields. So when you're starting to look in the back and you're like, is this my field? Whose field is this? Where did this come from? The designation of BLX is telling you that this field comes from us. You're putting your data in that field, but Benelinx built the field and deployed it through the managed package, and you have it available for your use. Other like I said, managed packages will have their own designation. You also can create your own custom objects. So there's 2 different kinds of custom, managed package custom, and then your own custom. Okay. So you have control over building additional objects within your system. Okay. So important to understand. When I'm looking for an object, you can see that it's alphabetical. If I want to find policies quickly, I can always use the quick find. And now it's going to get me to that place much quicker. And now I can go into that object and see what's in there. I can also create a brand new one. I can create a brand new object, relate it to other records, etc., put it on Lightning Pages, etc., etc., etc. At some point, we built our custom objects for you and deployed them through the package. Okay. So, come on. Come on, notes. me go here. Sorry, my PowerPoint is acting up. So let's go and see what features we have available. I'm going to go into a Benelinx object so that I can see the details of all the features we have on the left. So this is where we're going to start breaking down um, each one of these components, and some of them we're going to go into more detail than others. I'm not going to go in order from top down because the importance of these fields, I think I'm going to explain to you kind of the layering effect of how all this gets built. So we're going to jump around a little bit, but logically, it's kind of going from the highest level and the biggest objects or the biggest features down to the most granular. Okay. And so, first and foremost on this side, every single object, the design here and the feature capabilities are identical. So as you can see, I'm in the policy object and I can see all the different features that I can click into, and I can see the different record types, for example. If I go out and I click on a different object, same menu, okay? So consistency in what I'm looking at is really important. Any object I go in, I open it, and guess what? Default is going to start me at details, and the same exact menu of options are visible here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, we'll just go into this object, which is ours again, Benelinx, and I can see that here. So in the details tab, this is the first option to look at. So what is this and why is this helpful for me? So when we build custom objects for you and/or you build your own, you decide the label, singular, plural, you can put descriptions. Important things to note if you're building a brand new object is you can decide, sometimes our system has an automated number that is kind of the label and the name of that record. You can decide if you want it to be a text field or if you want it to be a number field. So this is where, when we build objects, where we make that definition. You can then decide if you're building your own, do I want a text field? Do I want an automated number? Other really important features is you can see here, I can decide with this object, do I want to allow reports to be built from this object? Do I want to allow activities? Remember I talked about AI, field tracking history. Yes, we want to enable that, right? But this is where I can turn things on and off. But field tracking history allows me to track the fields that I'm going to designate. All this is right here, though, is telling me I turn it on. I still have to go into my fields and relationships and designate which fields, but this turns on the feature. How do I want to share this object? I can actually build an object and not have it deployed, I mean it's not visible to anybody. And then really important, do I want to allow this to be searchable? We have objects that you don't even know exist behind the scenes that we don't have some of these features on because you're not searching for those records. They're built for automation on the back end. So really important to note, what can I see when I go into that details section? One thing to point out as well is that, gosh, I wish my Outlook or I wish my PowerPoint would work here. Behind the scenes. There we go. So one thing to note, if I'm in a object that is Salesforce, okay, we cannot edit the Salesforce standard objects. Okay, so it's only going to be, this detail section is only going to be editable if I'm inside an object that either was built by Benelinx or a managed package or custom built by me or someone that I'm paying for to do. Okay. Okay. So let me just catch up here. All right, so now let's move on to, I'm going to open up one of our Benelinx objects again. So again, menu is the same. I'm going to jump us down to record types. So when I explain in training, the first highest level really is our apps. What do we want to see within our, our agency management app or our commission app or our sales app? Below that immediately is our objects. We're in the object manager, and those are the big categories of how we're organizing our data: accounts, contacts, policy, services, actions. Then underneath that, we have record types. So that is subsections of this object. Internet problems. It's not going as I had planned. Here we go. Let's try again. We'll just keep plugging along. And so this again, this is our actions object, and you can see our different record types. So this is dividing up the object and saying underneath that, we have very distinct categories of actions that we want to designate so we can have different visibility on the fields that are going to be displayed and the way that we want to organize the output of that data. So really important to understand that we have the breakdown here, and I can go into those record types. I can see which ones that I have pre-built. I can open up the record types. I can see which one is active or not active. So we may want to deactivate. We don't need the billing action record type, so I can deactivate it, which eliminates it from visibility. Okay. Other things I'm going to talk about when we're building fields, you can see a really important component on record types. You see this list of pick list fields. So all this is a list of pick list fields that are built into this object. Really, really important that when I build pick list fields, for example, status, I have to designate within my record type what status values I want available under this record type. So it's a secondary level. And why do we do that? It makes sense if you think about it logically. I have actions. I have a status field under all actions. Maybe for this billing record type, I don't need escalate internally. I can change then what is visible under that record type, even though I have one field that is pick list status fields and all these values, but only on the billing, I don't need the escalated internally. I'm going to remove that. So when I go into build, as a record, a billing action, I only have these values, not this one included. How do I set that? I have to build the field and then I have to add it to my record type and I have to designate within all these record types what values under that pick list do I want to make visible for that particular record type. Okay, really, really important, because we're starting to segment. And why do we build record types? Because I want to see different things on different record types underneath that umbrella object. Accounts is a really important one. If I jump there, this is an obvious one. Under my accounts, I have record types. I'm not going to track the same fields under my client account than I am under my carrier account, right? Very, very distinct fields. And again, even values, pick list values under carrier are going to be different than when I go into my business client. Okay. So we have objects. Under that, we break apart our objects into subcategories, which are record types. Then secondarily, we decide who can see these record types, right? So we have to decide from that page layouts, which I'm going to jump up here next. We're building then the page of those record types. Under my business client, what fields do I want the user to see? I have to assign those page layouts then, right, to the different record types, and you can see it matches up nicely. So if I build a new record type, I have to also build a page layout. How is it different or the same than the other pages on what's visible to the user? I have to make sure I assign it though. If I don't assign the page layout, it's gonna be broken, right? It's off. It's not gonna match. Okay, so I go up here to the right. I can see the assignment of my page layouts, and I can even break it down at the profile level. So different users may have different access depending on, and then all of my record types have an assignment of, and I do that on my record type here of the page layouts. Hopefully this is a building, right? So I've got my object, I have my record types. What subcategories? Then I have page layouts. And again, in mirroring my record types, a lot of times I have distinct page layouts for each record type. Why? Because I may want to track AM best rating. Someone asked me the other day what that was. I must be getting old. And that's a field for the financial rating of a carrier. I don't need that field on my business client, vice versa. So with my record types, my different record types, I have now my different page layouts. And those are distinct. I can decide, what do I want the carrier record to look like and fields that are going to be on that page, and how is that different than what is on the agency account record, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So if we're going brand new, we can build brand new page layouts. If we're modifying and editing, we want to go into the record type that we're looking for, to be able to modify that page layout. And again, those go hand in hand. Business client, record type, we have a business client page layout. Those go together. So if I'm building new record types, make sure you build a page layout to go with it, right? All right, so page layouts are going to be, this is the standard way that Salesforce, in kind of the classic mode, classic and lightning, that's the older version of Salesforce, is how you would traditionally, it was the only option back then, how you would build your page. What do people see on the page, right? If I scroll down here, this should start to look a lot like here, right? I've got account name, DBA, primary contact. If I go back, account name, primary contact, DBA. So I'm building, it's a drag and drop feature, and I'm building how I want my page to look. Couple things about up here in this menu. This is a menu of options. Again, I'm in my account. I'm in my page layout. I can see what page layout I'm in. It tells me. Menu of options here. The default, again, Salesforce tells us where we're at by underlining and highlighting. I'm in the fields. This is a menu of all the fields that are available in my account object. So it's a menu of fields that I can decide if I want a field to be pulled down. I just drag it and move it to the page. I can release it by two ways. I can move it back up, right into the menu. I can pull it back down. I can also release it by hitting the negative to remove. Notice also next to the negative, I have lots of functionality here. I can bring it down, I can move it away. I don't want it anymore, I don't need it on the page, right? I also have this gear, and it allows me to do a couple other things with that field. I can make it read-only or required. You as a system admin can make it required. This is the first step of making it required on the page layout. So lots of functionality. Go find the field, alphabetical, type it in, right? Move it down, move it back up. I'm in the default of the field library. Okay. I can also move things around the page. Maybe I want risk level to be over here instead of over there, right? So where do I find the information on the page? How is it organized top down? I'm in the fields feature in this menu at the top. Additionally, I can go to any of these and I can see what it's doing. If I click on the properties required and read only, I showed that to you. The asterisk is saying that this is required. I can undo and do. Certain fields allow us to do that. Sections. I can update a whole section and I can get rid of the whole section, or I can use that, again, wrenched, I say gear wrench, and I can decide how I want those sections to be organized. This is the level of detail we can go to, right? I can decide. Consistency is really important. Benelinx manage package, consistency. If we're doing two columns, if we're doing left to right versus top down, we made all those decisions to keep every single page consistent for you. Okay, you can decide how you want that organized, the label of the section. You can even move the sections up and down on the page. Again, drag and drop, move sections. See how that moved to the top? I can move it back down. So drag and dropping. I can change the label of the section, right? Now I've got a new label. I can move them around the page. Other features at the top. Buttons. So classic is old school Salesforce. We live in the lightning world. So instead of going to buttons, you're going to go to mobile and lightning actions to be able to pull down different buttons onto your page. This is what's going to be visible to you. We do not use the classic. That's the other side of Salesforce that is older. So if I want buttons, don't go to the buttons. Go to mobile lightning and actions. Drag and drop. Again, you see the menu changes because these are now buttons or our activities that we can drag down or move up. And you can see it looks familiar to some of the buttons that we typically provide our clients. Last component here on the page layout, there's a million here. I'm going to go through the three basics, which is fields, mobile lightning, actions, and related lists. So if I go down the page and I pivot back again, here is my page. When I get to the bottom, this is the end of the details of my page. My related lists are visible as now tabs instead of below. Old school, it was below. And now I've got related records to my account. So I've got contacts that are related to Bob's Bakery. How do I see them on the back end? If I scroll to the bottom here, if I keep going, I can start seeing my related list. This is the area by default we can start to decide, and we talk about this during onboarding, when I go to my related contacts, what fields can I see here without having to click in, right? I've got a contact name, title, and email and phone. If I pivot back, contact name, title, email, mobile phone, right? So this is where I can start building what fields on the contact record related to my account do I want to see? Maybe I don't want mobile. Maybe I just want phone. I think I have it off a little bit. I'll show you how that works. I can grab the field here, find it in the available list. And again, this is looking in my contact records, not my account, because I'm looking at my related contacts too. I move it over, old school, move it up the page, move that out. Maybe I want title. I think that's the one I need to add because that needs to match. Title, title, title. Maybe title. Oh, it's right there. Move it down. There we go. So I can adjust it. I can decide where it's visible. I can decide what order it is, ascending order, descending, hit OK, and see how now I'm able to control what fields are on my related list. So this is where we start thinking, how do I want to see it? Where do I go to change and modify? Not building anything new, just how do I want to redesign the pages so far? We're going to talk about building new. And then we save. Okay, so really important, we've got our object, we've got our record types. That's the breakdown of the different categories. We have then page layouts that match our record types because we're going to have different fields visible. We're going to then be able to modify our page layouts. What fields do we want? What sections do we want? Where do we want the fields to live? What related list information? I forgot to mention this, that's why I'm backing up. In the fields, I can create my own section. See how I scroll down and my menu stays up here, which is really nice. If I wanted to add a brand new section, I could do that here as well. Add a whole new section. There's my section, and I can start dragging fields down here. Okay. So I missed that. Okay. So we'll go through and clean this up after. Right. So once we have page layouts, don't forget to assign them, or you won't be able to see them. Assign them to the record types. So page layout assignment is really important. Okay. Now let's go into the all-important fields and relationships. This is where we're going to run out of time. This is where between this fields and relationships and our lightning pages, we're going to get through as much as we can today, and we'll finish in 2 weeks with giving a little bit more time to going through this because it's a really big area where we can build, update, manage, etc. So when I go into fields and relationships tab, regardless of the object I'm in, again, we have consistency in what we're looking at. First and foremost, we have field label. We have the field name, which is the API name. We have the data type. So this gives us a lot of information. I can sort by these columns, okay? Just like in a list view. And alphabetical is the default. If I want to sort by the field name, I can do that as well. Sometimes I may want to sort by the data type. That's really helpful if I want to see all of my URL fields in one spot. Okay. So this is where I'm going to get a lot of data points, right? This is all the fields. And again, we have a combination of field types, just like object types. So when I'm looking at this list, how do I know who owns this field and where did it come from? First and foremost, if it's a standard Salesforce field, it doesn't have any prefix or suffix. This we know then because it doesn't have a prefix or a suffix, this is a standard Salesforce field, meaning every single person that buys Salesforce gets this field automatically. Okay, they own it, it's theirs. Okay. In addition, then, we have two different kinds of custom objects. A custom object that is not built into the managed package. We know it because we can see the suffix with the C, designating custom. If it comes from a managed package like Benelinx or Conga or any other managed package that you download, there will also be a prefix. So we can see the fields that Benelinx gave us because we can go down this list and we go Salesforce, Salesforce custom, Benelinx, Benelinx, Benelinx. These are all the fields that we have built for you. And we can do different things with them, with the different types of fields. I can sort by data type. We're going to talk about all the different data types I can build. This is going to be really important. This is where this is like the computer programming in our brain, right? It takes me a long time, took me a long time. I'm getting there. How do I build a field? I have to start thinking about, well, what type of field do I need? What does it need to do? Where is it going to live? How is it going to perform or function? What are the dependencies on it? It's a lot. So we can build brand new fields. If I build a custom field, I can delete it. Only custom fields. Can't delete Salesforce fields. You can't delete managed package fields. You can remove them from visibility, but you can't remove them from the system. And really important is setting that field tracking. Remember, I talked about AI. This under each object is where I'm going to be able to set field tracking. Okay. I really need to make sure that we know how to do that in each object. How do we set field tracking? We have to do it before we have a problem. Right? So we can set field tracking. This is an example of a Benelinx custom object. This is where I'm going to track old and new values. I have to designate which fields before we have a problem. So really important fields that if the data in that field gets overwritten, we want to know what the history of it used to be, what it was, and who moved it and why. Not maybe not why, but so we can retrieve it, we can recover it, right? We can go back if we need to that old data that has been now overwritten. And again, this is field level. This isn't delete a whole record, retrieve from the cycle bin. This is I change the action, name or number or the contact name, right? And now I want to know what it used to say, what used to be in that field. This is where we do that in the field and relationships and set our history. There's another place we can do it in the home section, and we can add more. The limit, I think, is 20, unless you buy that enhanced capability with Salesforce, but this is where we do it. Okay. So we can now know whose field is it, right? We can see the label of the field name. We can see the data type. What type of field is it? We can remove fields if we need to that are ours, and we can set field tracking. So let's build a field. Okay, so first thing is we went to new, and now we're going to decide the data types. We could spend an entire hour going through each one of these functions and features. The easiest ones to start with, I'm going to scroll down here, and we go down through the list. We can obviously set if we wanted to create a new field with a checkbox, yes or no, right? A currency. We know that we can set the currency. We can set whether or not it has decimal values. We can set a date field. If we want date and timestamp, meaning, 9:45 a.m. on Tuesday, that would be the difference. Email. So when I create this field, it's going to be a link to an email address. A number field, right? A simple number field versus a percent. Obviously, phone number fields are formatted specifically for phone number recognition. I'm going to show you how to build a pick list field. Difference between a pick list field and a multi-pick list field. Big differences here, and there's some limitations. A pick list field is giving me values. If I say status, open, closed, recycled, I pick one. That is a pick list field. If I need the field to have multiple variables that I want to move over, maybe I have a field that is sold products. And maybe for this client, the sold products on the list of medical, dental, vision, life, and disability, I want to move over and say this client has medical and dental. Can't do that with a defined pick list. I have to use the multi-pick list so I can move multiple values into the selected list. There are pretty significant limits on what we can do with multi-pick list value fields in Salesforce. So be careful of that. There's limits on list views. There's limits on being able to filter and create dependencies. So while it's really needed in our world, we also have to understand the limits of that type of field that we're building. We have a bunch of text fields. So why do we care what kind of text field? Why wouldn't I just pick the biggest and the longest? Again, we can control certain variables. In a text field, we can put numbers and letters. We can control the size, so if we want to limit the number of characters. If we get larger and richer, there's limitations on, again, being able to see those fields on a list view where we can, mass update those fields. So the bigger we get, the less options we have to then have visibility and the ability to mass update. Most popular text field is this one with the 255. Just telling you. So that's one we use most of the time. Time and URL. You want to link to a URL. When you click on it, it's a hyperlink and it moves it over. Those are the obvious ones. More complicated is I can build formula fields. I can also build lookup. If I want to create a lookup from my account to my contact object, I can build a lookup that looks up to a record that is related to that, the object that I'm in. In this example, it's actions. And then master detail relationship, another level of complexity. So easy ones are the ones at the bottom of the page, more complex, more advanced field building, formula fields, lookup and master. So let's build a pick list real quick. So we go in, we pick the data type, we put in a label. Okay. Two different things here to be aware of, more and more. If we're repeating the same pick list values, yes, no, maybe. If I'm saying that if I'm creating a field and I'm using the same exact values over and over again, then we want to put it in a global. What that means is we're putting it at a higher level in Salesforce so we can grab that so we don't have to build the same values over and over again. And you can see that Benelinx has some global values already here. So if we don't have one built, if we don't want a global because this is very unique to this field, then we enter the fields here. Yes, no, maybe. So, okay. So entering in the different values by line is going to create then separate values. Going down the list. Field name. This trips people up all the time because why do we have two field labels? Technically, one is a label. This is what you see on the front end. Field name is what's on the back end. Any code, any flow is going to pull this value. It looks like a duplicate because it is, but you can't have a space, so you have to have an underscore. The benefit is we can have a label, what is visible to the user, and we can have a value or a name that is different. This comes into play if we want to change a Benelinx field and we want to change the label, but we don't want to disrupt the code and the automation. So we leave this the same and we can change this. This is for code. This is the backend field, the label or the identifier of the field that we need to keep consistent and unedited and set when we build automation around it. And this can be anything at once. And it's nice to have two actually, because now we can change this without breaking this, right? Two different ways to identify the field, front end, back end, and they're duplicates unless we change it because we want to make this easier for the user to understand what is the definition of this field without disrupting and breaking our code and automation. Other things really important here, description. If I want to put more details about what this field is about, the description is not visible to the user. Help text is. Whatever I put here is what's going to be that little eye that pops up on my field when I complete the process. So visible, not visible. Other parameters, well, you can go through at a later time. Second level is we have to decide who can see this field. So the first and foremost is that we're going to decide at the permission level who can see it, who cannot see it, depending on our permission sets. We talked about those a little bit. I do not recommend setting it for all. I recommend making a clear designation of who you're setting this for and why, right? If you select all, you might run into problems because you're assigning it to two permissions that you may or may not be managing. So definitely only assign them to the permissions that you know need them. We go next, and now remember we talked about this layering. We've got our object record types. We've got our page layouts. We even have lightning pages. Now I have to decide. I can decide now or I can pull it in later. Do I want this particular field on a particular record type? Maybe I only want it on my billing record type. Again, don't just add it to everything. You're going to add fields to your pages that you don't want there. So again, by default, uncheck and then designate clearly where you want this field to live versus just add it to everything. You're going to have to undo a lot if you do that. Okay. So if there was a lightning page component, it would have asked us for that as well. Let's go and look at that page layout and go to billing real quick. So I built the field. I told it where I want to see it, permissions wise, who can see it, and then where. And see where every new field I build in Salesforce, when I add it to a page layout, it dumps it under information on the bottom left of that section. If I added 5 fields, the 5 fields would be right here. That doesn't mean it's where I want it to be. Just because I put it on the page layout, I didn't tell it where on the page layout. So I have to go in after I build fields. I have to go into the page layout in the record type that I've told the system to put the field, and then I have to move it around where I want it. A lot of steps, isn't it? Hit save. Now I've got it where I want it. Okay. So that's why I didn't go down this list, because I wanted you to understand objects, record types, right? We need to know our record types. We have page layouts, then we build fields and put the fields. We build the fields, we decide what permissions, who gets to see it. Then we have to then decide what page layouts we want that field visible on. I'm going to jump to compact layouts before we move forward. So page layout is what we see, right? Based on record type. Let me go back to my example, right? Here is the details. Here's my page, fields on the page layout for this particular record type. My related list, I can decide what related records do I have related to my account in this example, and then what fields do I want visible. That is your page layout. There is compact layout, which is this preview screen up here. That's what we call a compact layout. What that is simply just fields on this page that are at the top of the page so I can see them quickly. That's the intention. This field is exactly the same as this field. We're just bringing it to the top so you can see a preview of the most important fields on the top of the page without having scrolled down to find the fields on the page. This is called a compact layout. I can get to that compact layout not through the page layout. I have to go to compact layouts. That's how I decide, and again, based on record type, what do I want to see on that compact layout? And you can see I can go in and edit it, right? I can see what fields I have visible, and I can change what fields are on that list up here. Boom, boom, boom. Type, primary content, etc. Okay, so I can move, again, available fields, find it here, move it over here, move it up the page here. Hit save or cancel. If I build my own custom, I can do that. I have to remember to assign it, right? Just like page layouts. If I build new, make sure I go in and I assign it. And again, it has to match agency compact layout, business client, business compact layout, etc., etc. I will let you know. Benelinx manage package, compact layouts. And you can see it says Benelinx on it. You can also see again that prefix. If you change the fields that are visible on this compact layout, the next time we release a package, it'll default back to our standard. So you're gonna have to, if you want your own fields here, clone it, build your own, and then assign it to your record type. Just be careful of that. But that's important. Page layout, compact layout, where do they live? Page layout, compact layout. What fields do I want visible here? There are limits on our compact layout and what fields we can put up there. That big long text field, no go. It's not going to be available. I can't add it there because it's a limitation of Salesforce. I cannot put all those there. Okay. Oh, lightning pages, the fun stuff, even more fun stuff. Let me scroll through here. We only have a few minutes left. So, lightning pages, I'm going to give you a preview for our next session, and I'm going to summarize a few other things at the bottom here. We're not going to have time to start, really, the lightning pages. So, probably 5 years ago, Salesforce took the page layout concept. This was what we used to do, and that's all we used to do. We would set your page layout, we'd move the fields around like I showed you, we'd assign it to the record types, and whatever we did here is what would be visible on our page. Salesforce then transitioned to the Lightning features within Salesforce, which is not classic. So it's a more modern version. And they started really enhancing the Lightning record pages. So it feels like double work because it is. So Lightning pages are taking our page layout concept and it's now creating a dynamic page layout that is like a drag and drop um, page that we can add additional features to our page. Things that we could not do before with the limitations of building the page layout. Now we have a Lightning page that goes on top of our page layout. And now we can take the same concept, but now we can add things like dynamic nature, the if-thens. If the field type equals enforce, I want this field visible, otherwise it's hidden. We're going to go through how we use this feature. We're going to talk through all the way from the page, how we can set the page template. We can then determine what components, these are called components. See, Salesforce tells us where we're at, underlining. We can drag into here that then we can display fields. We can add fields right to the Lightning page, just like we did on the page layout. And then we can add dynamic nature of it. It enhances our flexibility with controlling the user experience. This is critical. The downside is we have to do, when we build fields, we have to put them in both places. The downside is when I go here and I'm building a field, not only do I have to put it on the page layout, I have to put it on the Lightning page. It feels like duplicate work because it is. Eventually, Salesforce will merge those two together. But if I have Lightning pages enabled, which I do here, if I just put that field on the page layout, not on the Lightning page, you won't see it. But it's a beautiful enhancement. There's lots of great things that we can do with this. That's why 99.9% of our objects and our record types all have Lightning pages that are enabled. And you can see those here. If I go to accounts, you can see all the Lightning pages that we have already pre-built for you, that now all you have to do is go in and edit them. We have it designated the ones that are in use by labeling them in use. Okay. This is really important because this is the new feature add-on enhancement that we have enabled in all of your orgs that you need to know how, because if you start building fields and just putting them on the page layout, you're not going to see them. You got to add that last component, which is adding them to the Lightning page. We're going to go through that and some of the final features down here, kind of second level. Validation rules are going to be important. Conditional formatting on the fields is really cool things that we can do. Again, thinking through how do we control the environment? How do we build things so that the user experience, if my account is in force, I want to see certain fields. If it's prospect, I don't want to see certain fields, right? Making it more dynamic than just a bunch of fields on a page. Last thing I want to note before we leave, because we will continue this in 2 weeks. If you accidentally remove a Lightning page and delete it, there's lots of ways that we can delete. The one thing I want to be careful of is that if we delete a Lightning page, it is not retrievable. There is no functionality in Salesforce right now that allows us to pull it out of a recycle bin. I'm certain it'll come soon, but just to be aware of right now, if we remove an active Lightning page right now and remove it from the system, we cannot undo. So we've had that happen with a couple clients where that they had some consultants coming in and accidentally removed some Lightning pages, and they're very hard to replicate because there's a lot of things on the Lightning pages that are not duplicated in our page layout. So just be aware of that. And again, sandbox environment is highly encouraged. Going through and enabling your field tracking. And that in that sandbox is building Lightning pages, moving things around, and then just again, like anything I talk about is deleting. Deleting is always something that you should pause. That should cause some pause. Pause, think about it. And at this point, Lightning pages aren't retrievable. So that was a lot. But we went through quite a bit. We're going to finish kind of the second half. We'll specifically talk through how to manage, update, create Lightning pages. Some really cool dynamic nature, the if-thens, really starting to think like a computer, right? Other really great additions, validation rules and field conditioning, and I have some examples to show you next time. I know we're out of time. So appreciate it. Sorry about the little glitch we had. And again, this recording will be sent out and we will finish this in a couple weeks. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good day.